to our Theater Art Life Production Manager webinar. I see we have a lot of people watching us right now. My name is Bill Reeves. I'll be the moderator. I'm going to go around the room real quickly and introduce everybody. I'll start with myself. I've been doing this business of production for better than 40 years. I have worked for a myriad of people, but just to name a couple would be Prince, the Purple Rain Tour. I've done just about everything D'Angelo's ever done. I've currently entering my 13th or 14th year working for an artist by the name of Anthony Hamilton, and a bunch of other people. So I'm going to kind of go, I don't know how it is arranged on everybody else's screen, but we're going to start with Tony Bullock. Tony Bullock is with us.
Hello.
Tony is also a 40-year guy. He's worked for as a production manager. We're all production managers. Tony has worked for Whitney Houston virtually her whole career. More recently, Tony is entering double-digit time with Earth, Wind, and Fire. And I first met Tony when he was production manager for Starpoint. I don't know if anybody even actually remembers Starpoint, but that was when I first ran across Tony. Yeah. Next to Tony on my screen is Rebekah Foster. Rebekah is a 20-year plus inmate in this prison that we call the concert business. Rebekah has worked for years and years and years, worked for Marcus Miller as a production manager. Rebekah also works as an audio engineer. She's worked as with Lauryn Hill as a production manager, Missy Elliott, and others too numerous to mention at this time. Moving forward, we have Victor Reed Sr., and that's important because Victor's son is also a production manager. I don't know how his son got to be a good production manager because he took all of his instructions from Victor. So that's just it's just the luck of the draw, I guess. Victor is also a 40-year guy. Highlights of his career: Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, Jill Scott, Mary J. Blige, and the list goes on. Curtis Battles is with us. Curtis Battles is, he's a bit of a baby because he's only got 35 years in on the business. Curtis started life working for Lionel Richie. He more recently has done virtually everything that Eminem has ever done. He's worked for, who else, Curtis? Chris Brown.
Yeah, Chris Brown, Dr. Dre.
And the Chronic Tour, Dr. Dre.
Yeah.
So he's our go-to rapper guy.
And 50 Cent. Can you leave 50 Cent out?
50 Cent. Yeah, I forgot about 50 Cent because I always do. 50, yeah. And then the baby of our group is Ronnie Stevens. Stephenson. I'm sorry. I'm trying to read my notes and look back and forth. Ronnie is the baby of the group because he's only been in this business a mere 15, 16 years or so. He hasn't hit the 20-year mark yet.
This year will be 20.
This year's 20? Okay. Well, there you go. But this year doesn't count. But this year doesn't count because none of us are in the business this year. We're giving each other the business, but we're not in the business. Ronnie is Neo, Cardi B, TLC. He also works with Derek Jeter's Turn 2 Foundation, amongst his many other activities. So that's our panel here. We, as you no doubt have all noticed, are all Black production managers. This is Black History Month, and Theater Art Life was was kind enough to want to put this webinar together to give us a voice in the ongoing conversation about our business or lack of business, what we think, what we've done in the past, what we think might happen in the future. So we've put together several topics that we're going to discuss and sort of bounce back and forth with. And the first thing that I think we'll go around the panel and ask everybody, just because it's always interesting to hear, is how did you get in this business? What did you start off doing when you first got into business, and then how did you get tricked into being a production manager? And what is it that you like and or hate about being a production manager? So we'll start with Tony, and you can kick us off with answering or responding to that question.
Okay. You can say I started in this business simply by just hanging around and trying to get in. A good friend of mine and also a Victor Reed as well, Thad Edwards. Me and him used to run the SGA department at Morgan State University. Well, not run it, but we used to handle all the shows. And eventually we met other people that kind of guided us in, you know. So that's basically how we got in. Now, how I became a production manager, I don't have a clue. All I know is everybody kept saying, well, you know how to do this. You know how to do that. You know, you did go to school. You did go to college. Wait, look here, try this. You know, do this, do that. And, you know, that's what I ended up doing. And I'm quite sure all of us sitting here on this panel have ended up doing a lot of different things. You know. So I can say that, you know, in all reality, that's basically how I got in. People kept nudging me to do this and to do that. In the meanwhile, I stopped and I did 8 years with Maryland Public Broadcasting on the PBS network. And then the next thing I know, everybody said, well, you know, you need to come on back in. Come on. And I ended up back in, and this is where I've been since then, you know. So it's been a long road, a lot of different hats. And, you know, I have to say I've enjoyed it, and I've definitely enjoyed everybody I've met, known, and worked with.
There you go. So you got tricked into it like the rest of us.
Yeah.
What about you, Rebekah? Whoops. Okay, we'll just move on because Rebekah just left.
Didn't mean it, Rebekah. Didn't mean it.
I'm assuming she'll come back at some point. Oh, nope. Yeah, nope. Okay. Victor, why don't you pick up the slack while we're waiting for Rebekah to come back?
Yeah, you know what? I got started. I had a friend of mine that worked with this group called Newburgh out of Louisville, Kentucky. All right. Oh yeah. Old heads know who they are.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
Me and one of the guys that worked with the group became friends through my cousin who was living with us to go to school. So I was in college and he called me and said, hey, Reed, I know you're working, and we had a family business and I was running the business. Yes, I know you're working and going to school, but I'm going out on the road. He was working with LTD at the time. He said, and I need an assistant and a valet. And I didn't know what a valet was. I know what assistant was. Say, you want to go? I said, sure. So I went out there. So my first job was valet, assistant wardrobe. So I was a guy in Dolphin, Georgia, had to go at 2:00 in the morning, had to go find hamburgers for the cats and then pick up the clothes and all that. So my claim to fame on that tour, because I wanted to be on the stage, is Jeffrey Osborne did Love Ballad. He started the first verse off sitting down, and when he got through the first chorus and stood up to go do the second verse, I ran out and got the stool and came back. And I'm like, oh, my adrenaline was pumping. I'm like, no, that's what I need to do. Okay. So we finished the tour. And at the end of that tour, the production cast that was there, they was working with Rick James. So they called me to come work with Rick James to be head of wardrobe. I said, whoa, okay. Can I do that? Yeah, I can do anything anybody else did, you know. So I went over there. I was doing wardrobe, and And Rick at that time, I didn't know Rick real well, and he didn't know me. But I'm from South Central Los Angeles. It's a matter of respect with whoever we deal with. And at the end of one segment of the show, the beginning of the show, very first show he did, he asked me, what do you want to drink? I told him he told me he wanted a puree. And I said, what do you want it? Sit by my clavinet. I said, cool. I'm sitting on the side of the stage going, he's excited and he received the crowd well. The crowd received him. And he was like, turned to me and said, drink. And I'm pointing down. I'm professional. I've been on a tour. I ain't supposed to go to the stage. So I'm pointing down and saying, and he's looking, he's like, and he said, lipped off like, where's my drink, MF? Oh, I stood up like, bro, I know you ain't talking to me. And then the bass player nudged him, said, Rick, down there. And you could see the light bulb like, oh, wow. But he got this drink and continued performing. At the end of the show, I put the robe on him, got him in the dressing room and like wiped him down. That's how I was supposed to do it, all right? Took his boots off and he looked at me and said, Vic Reed, sorry about that. So, Rick, no problem, man. Good showing up. 2 days later, I was on the stage being drum tech and he had another valet in there, all right? So that's how I got started doing what I did. I'm like, yes, I don't want to do no flow. So that's how I did it. And he kept me with him. It was a matter of respect. He liked the fact that I stood up. Yeah. He didn't want me that close to him. He said, I'm going to keep him close, but not that close.
But not that close, right? You need to not be in this dressing room all the time.
Yeah, no. And we had a great bond, great relationship.
You're cool. I like you, but
yeah. No, I ran this stuff. He gave me production management, everything. He said 2 years, I became production manager. I ran all the stuff. He just trusts me. So it was like, cool. I learned.
Cool.
Yeah.
What about you, Curtis?
Bill, I started off working local stagehand in Long Beach Arena when I was in college. Just working for the summertime, picking up odds and ends jobs around Long Beach. So I was working on a show, on a rehearsal, and then I met a few carpenters out in the industry, like Bill Ness, Charlie Ness. And they came through one day and they said, hey, we're looking for a carpenter to come out on Lionel Richie tour. And Lionel Richie was my first tour in 1986. And I was just graduating from school, so it was like, shit, that's perfect. What kind of money are you offering? And they gave me a number like $700. I was like, that's $100 a day. Sign me up.
Yeah, right. Right. No, in those days that was serious money.
Yeah. Let's roll with it.
Yeah.
So I went on a Lionel Richie tour as as a fourth or fifth carpenter. It was a great experience coming out of South Central LA, and it's like, hey, I'm traveling the world. And don't have to pay for it, and don't have to wear a uniform.
Yeah.
So that, so I did the Lionel Richie tour, and the production manager, he was a hot production man at the time, and he just kept on rolling. So he rolled me right over within a year, right into Madonna, right to Paul McCartney, right to Prince on Love Sexy. So I just did 4 major tours as a carpenter. I was like, wow, I was floating, it was like, shit, where is the Eiffel Tower at, I ain't never been to Paris, but I'm going back for the 4th time in 3 years. It's like, hey, so it was a great experience, and that's when I started opening my eyes, like, wow, this could be a great career,
Yeah.
Good career, and I'm working with people, I'm meeting a lot of different people, and, traveling the world, which was all good. But I started noticing, it's like, wow, there's a very small percentage of people that look like me that's behind the scene. I had my boy with me, Lenny Geist. We all know and love, But Lenny and I, we toured the world for 3 or 4 years straight. But it wasn't a lot of us that looked like us. Even when I go into a building, even the stagehands, it's like, walking to a building like Cleveland, as we know, in the union, strong unions. And you may see 1, maybe 2 minorities working, which was all, it was a learning scale for me, which, my eyes were wide open. After that, I went over and started working with MC Hammer. And wow, that was a whole different experience. I've seen a lot of people look like me.
Yeah.
And one of the things that MC Hammer told the production manager, which it always stuck with me, was, hey, I want to make sure, if I'm paying them, make sure that somebody in every department is a minority.
Wow.
So that right there stuck with me until today. You know, that's one of my priorities on when I'm coming to staff a crew.
Yeah.
You know, and it took me 10 years to become a production manager. And, you know, when I was doing the MC Hammer, I moved up to stage manager, and then I started doing, I said, you know what, I wanted to be a production manager. And really the first job I got as a production man was Earth, Wind & Fire on Victor Reed, you know?
Yeah.
And just to have the freedom and that experience where, you know, you're doing all the hiring, you working with people and hiring people that you enjoy working with and traveling with, you know? So, you know, it was a great experience.
Well, you know, I don't know if you remember this, Curtis, but I met Curtis. I can't even tell you where, but we were working on Tony Braxton. You remember that?
Tony Braxton and
Kenny G.
Kenny G.
Tony Braxton and Kenny G. And Curtis was my carpenter. On speaking of not seeing too many people that look like us, I don't know if that was your first time, but that was probably one of the few times you saw somebody that looked like us that as a production manager.
Correct.
And do you remember I told you? Do you remember I told you you should be a production manager?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, because you and Curtis Sean and I had a conversation one day. Because Curtis he was the carpenter / stage manager for that show, which was a good sized show. A lot of moving parts, big set, pianos moving around on mobilators, all sorts of, you know, curtains coming in and out. So a fairly involved show. And Curtis was doing a great job. And I remember very distinctly sitting down with you one day and saying, you know, dude, you should become a production manager. And at the time, Curtis was going, maybe, I'm not too sure, I don't know. And then I think it was probably the next year that you finally bit the bullet and started.
And that was Victor Reed when he.
Yeah.
I seen it too, Bill. I seen it because he did. Yeah. He was a leader. When you're a leader, and you knew everything about the whole show. And that's what you have to
like
do.
I said,
the whole picture.
He was working for me, and I said, dude, you need to get this other job going.
But the thing about it, I mean, as you all know, I'm a hands-on guy. And I love touching things where I'm there. I have to be the first one in there. Yeah. I gotta have, I'm the first one to load a truck. Cause can't nobody load a truck better than me. Yeah. let me tell it, It's just me.
Well, I think that's probably. And don't forget, part of this question is not only how did you become a production manager, but what do you love about being a production manager? And I think we can all agree that one of the things that is appealing about this job, well, first of all, there's two things. First one is you get to be the boss. You get to tell other people what to do.
Yep.
Let's face it, we're all bossy people. We like telling other people what to do. But more than that is the collaborative nature of this job, is that you work with a lot of people and you have to know a lot of things and keep the big picture so that you can all achieve the common purpose of putting the show up. So I know, at least for me, one of the things that I like about being a production manager is the collaborative nature of it, is that you are working with a whole bunch of other people, all striving for a common goal, which is to have it all ready to go at 8:00 when the lights go down and the curtain goes up. What about you, Ronnie?
I started out as a runner in New York City.
Yeah.
And from being a runner, I started a company called Stage Matters, which we provided backstage hospitality, towels, and we created the first laundromat and dry cleaner nationwide service. And from that service, I
still have the laundry bags you gave.
You still have the laundry bags.
I still got one around somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, so I did that local around New York because when I was a runner and a PA, I worked with a local promoter, Metropolitan, which is how I met Rebekah. And did all the shows at Hammerstein Ballroom on the promoter side. And it popped in my head. I was like, you know what? These towels that I'm providing at these shows locally, I wonder if I could provide them for a whole tour. So I pitched the idea, American Idol, and I never planned on going on tour. I just planned on sending the towels and they deal with it. So they came back to me and they said, we love this concept, we love this idea, but there's only one catch. And I said, what's that? They said, we want you to come with the towels. And I said, oh, really? Okay. So, I mean, literally within days, I packed up and was on tour. And from that is how I met you, Bill, because through Eddie Powell, Eddie Powell introduced me to Jeff Sharp, who brought me out on the Best of Both Worlds tour, Usher in 2004. And from that tour, I ended up on the Kanye tour. And on that Kanye tour, I met Hot Dog, and I would see Hot Dog every day. He would set up Kanye's dressing room, put the TV in there, the sound system, everything, and I would watch him. And because I was out there dealing with towels and laundry and just, you know, as an entrepreneur, one day I went to Hot Dog. I said, listen, I could do this for you because I have the time, and you don't have to, you know. I won't charge you anything extra because I'm here. And Hot Dog was like, for real? And I was like, yeah. He said, man, that would be amazing. So I ended up taking on that gig. And then the next year, Jay-Z went on his first world tour. And it was a very small crew. And Hot Dog and Randy Bazzelli came to me and they said, listen, we need a junior person to come out on this tour with us. If you would be interested, we'd love to have you. And that was in 2006. That was the first world tour that I did. And from that tour, Neo, who was one of the artists that Jay-Z signed when he was president at Def Jam, he opened up for Jay-Z in Australia. Rihanna and Neo opened up for Jay-Z in Australia. And Jay and Hot Dog, Randy, all of them, they said, listen, you take care of him, make sure he's good. He's one of the artists that Jay wants to make sure he's good. So I said, okay. And from there, I established a relationship. And then later that year, I heard from Neo's team and they asked me if I would be interested in being a production manager. I didn't even know what a production manager did, but I said yes. So
that's pretty much all of us. All of us have we've all said yes to shit that we had no idea what we were getting into.
Bill, I didn't know how much to get paid.
Yeah.
And here's the funny thing. So I tell him a rate. So I end up on the call with Neo's manager, and the manager says, so what's this rate you want? And I gave him the rate. He said, listen, I just had a guy that we let go that worked with us that has 20 years experience in the business. He said, you don't have any experience. I'm not paying you that. So I said, well, what will you pay me? He said, I'll pay you the same thing I paid him. So to me, I was like, I'm coming in making the same thing a guy who had 20 years experience. I said, that's deal. So
because you were just grabbing numbers out of the air anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And then to just kind of touch on the next part of the question. I mean, for me, like you mentioned, in terms of like the thing that I like most about being a production manager is the collaboration. I really like being involved in the creative. I like, like, when you have an opportunity to be in the meetings when they're developing a set list and the flow of the show and, all of that. And, working with great creative directors, that I think that was one of the most eye-opening experiences for me once I got onto the PM side is starting to engage with the creative directors and see how the shows are created and developed, which was something, because I think from a production management standpoint, we use all the parts of our brain. You have to know numbers, you have to be able to manage people, you have to understand the creative. I mean, and I think that's the best part about the job. I really don't have a part that I hate, me personally. I mean, I think anytime when you get the information last minute, which is a lot of times, I think that's puts a strain on us because we still.
Yep, he froze up.
No.
And he's frozen. Well, we'll pick that up when he reestablishes context. Well, one thing, the point that he brought up, and I 100% agree, is the creative aspect of the job. When there's in my mind, there's two levels of creativity. The first one that Ronnie was referring to is the putting the show together and working with the artist and working with the designer and working with the business manager, because it's all got to fit inside of some kind of budget, or you have to figure out how to realize the vision of the designer and the artist and get it all done inside of some kind of a budget. And I agree that the creative, that's in my mind, that's a creative process, not only from the standpoint of designing the set and the look of the thing and that, but also putting all those parts together. The other creative part of this job is the day-to-day managing of all of the elements and making them all fit together on an ongoing forward-looking basis. So I agree that creativity is a major component of what we like about this business. What do you think, Rebekah?
Oh, it's definitely an important part, because we have to figure out how to get what the artist has in their head to the reality of the room and the reality of the budget, and work with the designer to make all that happen. Because sometimes what they want and what reality is,
right, and you have to bring reality and the desires.
You have to get the balance at all.
Yeah.
Right.
So how did you get into this business?
Well, I'm from the Bronx.
Why did you get into this business?
I tell you, because I was always doing art stuff. I have an artsy family. And I started DJing back in the early days, went to university for sports medicine, and realized that this music thing is really drawing me. So I left and I came back to New York. And my father's rule was always, you're either going to go to school or you're not going to live at my house. So I ended up going to, I went to Hunter College and Institute of Audio Research because I knew I loved audio. And that's just what it is. I went from DJing to engineering. I was doing, local gigs all around New York, a lot of jazz, a lot of everything. And then KRS-One from Boogie Down Productions came to see Sonny Rollins. I think it was either Sonny Rollins or Dizzy Gillespie. He came to a show I was mixing and loved how it sounded and asked me if I wanted to come work with them. And so I started in the studio and engineering in the studio and then on his live stuff. The studio tan, I don't like it so much. I enjoy the recording and the process, but I need air and outside and sun. So I enjoyed the live better. Started touring live, doing Boogie Down Productions. Then I left them. Latifah called, and like 2 days later, and said, "I heard you're free. You want to come work with us?" And so I started doing all of that, and then I started realizing, as an engineer, that when budgets got cut, the engineer was one of the first to go because they could pick that up locally. If they had to lose a body.
Yeah.
So I decided I need to learn every single thing so that I'm not expendable. And that's exactly how it happened. I learned how to road manage, tour manage, and production manage. And then eventually it came to the point, well, we don't know. I was like, look, I can do the tour management. I can put your stage up. What do you need? I can do it. And that's how it started.
Yeah.
So that I was able to be flexible.
Yeah.
Like when I first met Tony, that was 94. when I was on a Latifah tour, and Vernon called me and said, "Hey, you need to get on this Whitney tour." And I was like, "How am I gonna do that?" He said, "I'm gonna put your name in for assistant tour manager." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I interviewed with Tony, and then I got that. And it just kept going from there. More for me, it was word of mouth and people hearing that there was a woman, a black woman that could do this, and that she could do a few things. So, that's pretty much how I started.
Yeah.
And
you made yourself indispensable.
I figured I better learn everything that I can learn.
So you'll never be the one that gets sent home.
So you
go send a whole bunch of other people home, but don't send me home.
I can be a ram in the bush.
Yeah.
And then Bill, you and I worked together on that naughty bad boy thing.
On the puffy thing. Right.
On the puffy thing. But that year before that, the year before you, because Biggie was already gone by that time.
Yeah.
So the year before that, it was me and all the Bad Boy family, all the Naughty by Nature, all of them, and little old me. So, and I probably ran across you, Victor, and maybe not Curtis that early, but I'm sure I ran across Victor back in those days.
Oh yeah.
So it just kept going from then. And
well, the one thing
for me,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, for me, the part that I love about the production management side of what I do is exactly that. Just being able to get it in, get it up, get it out, and get it to the next city.
Yeah.
Everybody's safe. The artist is fulfilled. The audience is fulfilled. And, there's enough food on the bus so the crew is happy after the gig and we go to the next city.
Gotta make sure. That's one of the things, one of the through lines here for the people that are watching, as you have probably figured out, is that we all know each other for years, for decades, really. There's nobody on this panel that I don't know for 20 years and more, because as people of color, and in production, it's a fairly small fraternity. We're fraternity / sorority. Sorry about that, Rebekah. But club. Let's just call it a club. Probably for those of you watching, you're looking, and you guys jump in. I mean, you're looking at better than 50% of the Black production managers that tour international acts on this panel. There's really not a whole lot of us. One of the things that that Curtis mentioned as he was coming up was realizing that he didn't see a whole lot of people that look like us in these positions of management. So that's one of the things that leads me to our next topic, is as people of color working in touring, particularly because we're people of color, we tend to work mostly in the hip hop R&B world, because that's where the majority of the Black artists are. So it would make sense that's where the majority of the Black crew members are. So, and I'm going to go around the room again. What do we think are some of the differences between working in the hip hop R&B touring world as opposed to the pop, the white pop world? And I just want to get everybody's thought on that. Let's start with you, Ronnie.
Well, I mean, I think it was important that you added white pop, because I think a lot of the artists that you meant that we've all been discussing.
No, good point. Yeah,
you're
100% correct. is the white world, because
yeah,
hip hop is pop rock, you know.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
because I think, you know, for me, from my experience, a lot of it has to do with how hot the artist is. You know, if you're on a tour and you're selling tickets, you know, the experience is amazing. I mean, I don't really care who the promoter is. You get what you want, you get what you need. Everybody's happy. But if you're on a tour that's bombing, it's it's an awful experience, man. I mean, this could be your favorite artist. You could love this artist, but I mean, if they bombing, I mean, it's gonna be a rough experience. After show food is gonna be questioned.
Say
They're
free
gonna
cheese sandwiches.
yeah, they're gonna question everything in your line items. They're gonna wonder, you know, do we really need this? Do you really need that? You know, so I think for me, as a person of color, I think at the end of the day, no matter who the promoters have been, a lot of it has to do with the experience of the show and what the sales were, because that a lot of times dictates the experience for everybody, the experience for the audience, the crew. You know, everyone gets treated a lot better under those circumstances. I mean, you know, I can't say though, the struggle that I've had has been often with the promoters, when I get janky promoters who didn't do their due diligence, and they didn't, you know, they didn't look at the rider. They trying to cut corners. They want you to cut your travel party down because they can't afford the flights or the hotels or whatever. You know, I think for me, you know, the promoter experience as a person of color, that depending on when you especially when you're dealing with rap artists, you know, when they're early in their career, and you're dealing with rap artists that are early in their career, you know, you come across situations where the promoters have no experience, and I think that's one of the biggest struggles.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you that a lot of the difference is due to budget, like you said, that, you know, if you've got a hot act and you're selling tickets, life is easier than if you don't have a hot act and you aren't selling tickets. And that's true of any white, black, green, yellow. If you got money, it's better than not having the money to spend. But I'm more particularly interested in, does anyone here, and I'm just going to throw this open to the group, having experienced you know, discrimination based on color from stagehands, from you know, from the building, from
everybody raise their hand.
Yeah, right. So that, I mean, that's where that's where I was going with the question. Is if you're working for Jay-Z, who's the biggest guy in the world at that moment, and life is wonderful. But if you're working for somebody who's just good, you know, not amazing or stupendous, but just good, and you are otherwise budget-wise able to get done what you got to get done, how do we feel about the way, you know, the systemic racism in this business, in the world, not just this business, in the world, affects you on a daily basis? I mean, other than the obvious stuff, you know, I want to be more specific towards doing a show, putting a show in, dealing with promoters, dealing with business. I mean, not business, dealing with building personnel. How do we feel, or what do we think about that? Anybody?
You get taught of proving yourself. You get taught of proving yourself. You know, people constantly, you know, look, follow you, question you, and it's like, dude, what the hell are you doing? Trust me, I know how to do this. I know what I'm doing. You don't, you know. And the other thing, my favorite line is, either they think I'm security or I'm the goddamn janitor. One of the two. One of the two, and it's ridiculous. What's the difference in between a rock and a pop and a rap group, R&B? There's no difference. The objective is to get the show up, get it down, get it out, keep it on budget, and get to the next stop on time. That there's no difference.
Yeah.
The overall objective is getting asses in seats, paying asses in seats. And simple as that. And so
no, I was going to say, and to that point, you're right, because everybody uses the same lights. Everybody uses the same sound.
Hello.
A microphone doesn't care who's singing into it. A light doesn't care who it's shining on. So the gear and the mechanics of the job are the same, be it pop, rock, country, polka, reggae, whatever. It's all the same gear. So that part, if you are competent in dealing with the gear, you should be able to get done what you got to get done. So, but having to prove yourself and having to explain yourself as you go along. Anybody else?
And the thing about it, like Tony said, it's the same ball game for pop, rock, hip hop, rap. Things doesn't change. The venue doesn't change. The gear doesn't change. But the thing about as being a black production manager, we don't have the room to make a mistake. We definitely don't have a budget. If we make a mistake, we're fired. Our number's not there. We don't get a second chance or third chance. So when you walk in that building, you have to go in with a game plan. I mean, when I walk in the building, Bill Reeves in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm looking at how to get the hell out of there. Loadouts. Load in is easy.
You're already there.
I did load ins do my advance.
Yeah.
When I was in pre-production rehearsal, figuring out the show. That's easy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how do I get out of this building, move to the next city.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing shows overseas in Europe. You definitely better figure out how to get the hell in and out of those buildings.
As a black production manager, we're not going to get a second chance.
No, and that's an excellent point, because I think we've all seen or heard of people who were just grossly incompetent or really screwed up hard, and they still got their gigs
and get another good job after that.
Yeah, we even have done better. And there's stories we've heard of production managers who have just done horrendously bad things and a bad job and screwed up and cost money and blah 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 blah. But they kept their job. They
have a budget to cover their ass.
Yeah, but but you're right. If we screw up to that extent, there's guys I've heard of. I can't imagine how they kept their gig, because they were so incompetent.
Yeah.
But they kept their gig, and of course, you're right. For us, being incompetent is not an option.
Yeah, I mean, you won't get a second chance.
No.
And like you said, there's a whole list of guys out there. Because it's part of the good old boy network.
Yeah. No.
I'm not trying to get there. So
yeah.
And you end up fighting every damn body. You really do. You end up fighting everybody.
Yeah, it tends to be an uphill battle.
You guys, Rebekah? Take that. I was going to say, you guys take that and add on top of it being a black woman.
Oh yeah,
yes.
So you have the perception, and then you have to constantly prove yourself, and then it gets to the point where you have to shut them down, like Tony said. You step to the side, let me get this gig in and out, and then you go ahead with yourself. One of the other things I would say, Bill, that ties into this is, let's just take hip hop for instance, as somebody who's the other go-to hip hop person other than Curtis. There's a perception already when you come in the door with a specific act as to how they believe you're going to act when they see the bus that has a crew of color, not just a production manager of color. I'm like Curtis in terms of, all of us. We all have mixed crews. predominantly people of color, but we have white people in your crew. I have a Vietnamese, like that. You know, we have my crews represent the rainbow, albeit more people of color. But that's how I like to do it. But when they see a crew coming in, they immediately have a perception. And I've actually had buildings tell me, you know, kept calling the buildings you were at before, and they said everything went smoothly, and you got, but just in case, I added a few more people to the loadout.
Just in case
and pulled on the more security. And I'm like, that's fine, but that's not going on settlement.
Yeah,
exactly.
I told you what I needed.
Exactly.
I didn't order anybody extra.
Right.
That's not going on
right.
settlement. So
who told you to add it, and who told you to cut it?
But it's a hip hop show.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, who gave you that permission to do that? So I think it's that. And then I've seen things like, and I'm sure you guys have seen this too, where you tell them where you need your barricade, but they perceive that it needs to be way farther out to control your crowd that you already know. So they're doubting you. It's a consistent doubt and undermining.
Yeah, you raised a good point. It's not only the perception of the crews, but it's also the perception of the audience, particularly like hip hop audience or even R&B audiences. I work for a guy named Anthony Hamilton, who's an R&B crooner, the nicest, sweetest guy in the world, and his crowds, his audiences are a bit older. You know, they're like, 35-ish, 35 to 45, and and they're dressed up. They're solid middle class people out for an evening. And I still occasionally go into buildings and have to explain, no, we don't need a barricade. This audience is not going to rush the stage.
Right.
This audience ain't going to really do much. Maybe they'll stand at their seat. That's about it. They're not going to rush the stage. They're not going to go crazy. They're not. It's none of that's going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's never happened. It'll never happen. Not with this artist. Not with this audience. But because it's a Black artist and a Black audience, there still is sometimes this perception that it's going to be crazy, it's going to be wild, we got to put on extra security, blah, 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 blah.
Hey, but Bill, so now, and I know everybody on this panel probably have experienced this as well. Our reputation precedes us. So we're going to areas, and it's not too many places in this world that we all haven't been.
That we haven't been, yeah.
That we haven't been. Too many buildings that we haven't been. So the thing is, for us, speaking of us on the panel, those who have the amount of years that we have into it and the relationships that we have, we can go into a building or advance, because 90% of our gigs is done in advance anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I have a thing that I hate to re-advance in advance. That's just one of my pet peeves. So I might be a Live Nation or AEG or whatever, usually, one of those. And it might be 3 weeks out before the first date or 2 weeks out. And we're just getting into production rehearsal. And I have yet to send my advance in because I don't want to have to re-advance it.
Right.
I have a new guy and he's like, man, they're pressuring me. The new touring promoter rep who's going to be with me, who's new, and like, Victor, they want to know if you got that. And I'm like, no, I'll get. And then he came back to me. I'm just situation. He came back to me and said, Victor, they're asking me about this. I said, well, I'll give it to you when it's ready. It's not ready.
Right.
And then he goes back and said, well, Victor Reed said that and he said, oh, Victor Reed? Oh, okay, cool. Well, whenever he gets to them, because the relationship is there. They know once we get there, they already know what it is. They know what we do because of our track records. All right. Now the younger generation is going to catch hell because you got them same people that still want to resist us, but can't because of the respect that they have and the track record that we have. But they're going to catch hell unless we help them along or try to bring them.
And that's particularly true when you hit new management. In a building. Like you're right. we've all been around forever and ever and ever.
Right.
And there's buildings that we go to where we have worked with that building forever and ever and ever.
And then if it's an asshole there, we check them in our career, and we might have to check them again. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, okay, all right.
Then you go back to the building.
You forgot. It's like, oh, you forgot. Hey, come here, let me remind you. All right.
Like I said, you get a new building manager or a new event coordinator who doesn't know that you know, and this speaks back to Tony's part. You have to kind of prove once again,
absolutely,
that I know what the hell I'm doing.
Right.
I've been doing this. I've been working with this artist, and I've been working in this business for X amount of years. Please just trust that I know what the heck it is I'm doing, and what I need and what I don't need. So yeah, having to prove yourself on an ongoing, continuing basis is one of the issues with being a person of color working as a production manager. I don't know, but I would suspect this would be true in any case. My favorite, when I say any case, I mean any genre, any pop, rock, country, polka, whatever. If you're black, you have to prove yourself, because they have a preconception of what black people's competency levels are.
Yeah, and that preconception is that we dance and we sing, and in general, we're in a good mood.
Well, that's true. I'm always in a good mood, but I can't sing. Dancing and singing. But okay, so anyway.
But you know what, Bill? Can I say something on that?
Of course, please.
What I enjoy about that, I love walking into a building when there's new people in there. I always tell them where the dressing room's at. They try to show me what they want to show me. They're like, no, you know what? I've been in this building when they first opened.
Yeah,
that pisses them off more than anything. But one thing about it, if you walk into the building with respect, which I always do, first thing in the morning, I expect to get it, and I'm gonna leave with respect, and I'm gonna give you respect.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you cross the line and want to treat me because you were a hip hop artist, we got a whole different ball game that day.
Then we're gonna have
your life gonna be hell.
Yeah. Well,
because
that speaks. I mean, that speaks to
right.
That absolutely speaks to one of the
Madonna
essential.
She don't have a fire lane, a 6-foot fire lane or 8-foot fire lane. She got a 2-foot fire lane, if that. So I want that same 2-foot fire lane because I was there and I seen the 2-foot fire lane.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah. So if 2 feet was good enough for the country act last night,
why can't
2 feet is good enough for the hip hop act tonight?
Correct.
Yeah.
Because they sell the same 16,000 tickets that Madonna just sold.
Yep.
We won't even talk about the backstage security precaution and what that's like.
But like Victor said, it really depends on your relationship with the building and the local promoters.
And as Victor says, your reputation, because
it does.
One thing that is true. Buildings talk to each other
all the time.
Buildings talk to each other all the time.
Yeah.
Before you pull in the morning, they already got the email.
They got a conversation. They got the layout, whatever happened last night. Pictures. Yeah.
Especially everybody under the Live Nation domain.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I was referring to, Curtis, when I said they have to see it to believe it for themselves. Because both of us have done 50. I toured 50 with Europe. 50 doesn't come in the building.
He don't come in the building.
The man is a worker. He's out making money. He comes to his gig. He does his job. He leaves the building.
Correct.
They don't believe it. They're artists that are straight about the business. And then there are artists. And there are hip hop artists who control their audience.
Right.
So if they see a fight break out, they're off stage. Figure it out, get them out the building.
They don't want any parts of that. Well, that's part of the perception of rap and hip hop.
And what's even worse is when there's a new head of building, but everybody else in the building already knows you.
Right.
There's a new GM who's got his point of view and not listening to anybody who's already worked with you the last 20 times you came in the building.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, he's trying to do his alpha thing in every corner, you know?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Marking his territory. That's one of the things that you referred to earlier speaking about how you deal with the buildings and how you deal with sort of the built-in racism is what Curtis mentioned, is you walk in the morning expecting respect. And if you get it, everything is cool. You know, if you don't get it, then everything is not cool. And
it's a long day.
It's a long day.
Make it a long day.
How you react to that and how you deal with that. And once again, one of the particular things about being a production manager is you have to be able to smooth over as being a politician, because you have to be able to figure out how to make things keep moving along. Like particularly, and we've all had this issue where you have a crew member, one of your guys gets into a beef with a local guy for whatever reason. And there's you know, there's cursing and there's yelling and people are choosing up sides. And as a production manager, one of the things you have to be able to do is know how to diffuse those situations without either side losing face, because you don't want you can't not support your guy, but you also can't, you know, demean the other guy, the local guy, right, who then's going to take all of his guys, and now it's a whole, you're not getting any work done because everybody's pissed off. So that working with respect, demanding respect, and giving respect goes a long way towards making the day go smoothly. Mm-hmm. And then conversely, of course, if you were lacking one side or the other of that equation, then it's a long ass day. Right. Then you're fighting uphill. Everything is difficult, and it's any direction you go is uphill. There ain't no downhills. It's all uphill everywhere you go. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the things about being a person of color, I guess, working in this business. I mean, that's a larger issue, not only in the concert business, but in the society as a whole. And it's something we all deal with on a daily basis in our personal lives, as well as in our professional lives. So hopefully we'll still be dealing with it, but it's nothing that will stop you in your tracks. And I think that's another issue, not an issue, but a point to be made, is that whatever happens, you got to get the show done. Right. So some days it's easy, some days it's not so easy. And as production managers, our job is to get the show done. So whatever you got to do, that's what you got to do. And you have to be willing sometimes to step back, and you also have to be ready sometimes to step forward. More often step forward, but every now and again you got to step back and say, okay, we'll just do it your way, because I got to get the heck out of here in the next hour. And trust me, when I come back the next time, it's going to be a different story. So moving on. What are some of the issues and challenges you face when touring internationally? And sort of a corollary to that question is, what are some of the special challenges with festivals? And this is more of a nuts and bolts question, but you know, just what, as opposed to touring. And I suppose the other part of that question is, how does touring internationally differ from touring locally, other than the obvious, you know, time change and money change? And then also, how does doing festivals differ from doing your own show? Basically being one amongst many, as opposed to being the one. So who wants to start with that? Ronnie?
Yeah, sure. I think for the international shows, I mean, I know from my first experience, you know, there was such a large learning curve in terms of like, you know, the voltage and, you know, just the things that you wouldn't know unless you had experienced crew. But you wouldn't know until you get out there and do it. I mean, for a lot of the listeners, the people who are tuning in, you know, I think those are some of the things that we, you know, I've toured and had obviously hair people come in and blow all the circuits in the dressing rooms because they didn't bring any of the right equipment, you know, and we tried to get them a transformer, but they don't understand what the transformer is.
So they burn all their shit up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, who
Exactly.
hasn't? I mean,
You're right.
I think we can take it as granted that we've all had, like you said, the hair and makeup people blow up all their shit. So,
yeah,
it just is what it is.
You know, but obviously, you know, the communication with your artists in terms of with the festivals as a different type of show, I think is key, so that they understand what they're gonna get, what's there, because you know the stage is gonna be different every night based on the dimensions. So you might have to scale your production down. You may need to scale your production up. You know, so these conversations with your artists are going to be really important, just so they understand what's coming in. And then, you know, some shows are going to give you certain, you know, pyro that you can use, and some shows are going to say no confetti. You can't use confetti tonight. So I think from that perspective, dealing with the festivals, you know, it's really important to, as Victor was mentioning before, your advance. Your advance is everything. So you know what you're walking into. So
Well,
that you can communicate it
but your
appropriately.
point is advance both ways. Not only know what you're walking into, but be able to communicate it to the artist, because that's 50% of the gig also.
Because they're gonna be looking at you.
Because they ain't looking at nobody else
but
you.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, with the artists that we're talking about, for the most part, we're, I think, fortunate enough where we get sound checks. But you think about the times when you walk into these festival situations and there's no sound check, and you just got to deal with it. You know, you might be coming in there with a number of dancers. The stage is smaller. The stage is different size than what they were expecting. You know, so these are all the we have to communicate along the way to make sure that the show comes off seamlessly.
Yeah.
Well,
you know, you have to have patience. You got to have patience. When you go to Europe, you got to have patience. You have to be ready. I mean, anywhere international, you have to be ready to make audible calls.
Yeah.
You know? And like Ronnie said, you know, if you don't have an artist that's festival friendly, you know, it could be hell. Like if you had an artist like a KW and who's not festival friendly, KW just initial. I'm sure everybody gonna figure that one out. But, you know,
tell them the famous story about the sun coming.
Oh no, we ain't got time for that one, Bill. I still got gray hair behind that shit. But you know, if your artist not festival friendly, it can be a nightmare. You know, and everybody's not cut out for that. Yeah. You know, I mean, festivals usually have their shit together. They usually have a system that works for all.
Yeah.
And for one day, you got to get in where you fit in. Which, me personally, I love doing festival because that's the time where I go and see a lot of my friends I haven't seen in years.
Yeah.
Tour, crew-wise, production manager, tour manager, catering people. And that's where you run across people from, you know, that you've been working with for 20, 30 years at festivals.
And like you said, if you have the patience and you understand what the deal is, it can be a easier deal than running your own show, because
absolutely. I mean, you can dump
it's their show, and if they
trucks.
have their shit together, and you just fit your little thing into the slot, take it out, and move on. And
but like Ronnie and Rebekah said, it's all about advancing. As long as you do a thorough advance, you know, festival day could be easy, but it depends on the artist too now.
And you know what? Sometimes we have those A-list artists, and I've had a couple of them that are very production intensive, and it doesn't matter if you're doing festivals, if you're doing your own standalone show,
right?
The production value, they want it to be that same. Now, but I mean, and the challenge is,
but that's not a veteran artist who's going to take the money and run.
No,
So
it's not.
It's not a veteran artist.
Yeah.
It's not. But you know what? A lot of them veteran, it ain't a whole bunch of veteran artists that will be the A-list that got that understanding. Okay.
Right.
It's some of these younger cats that are coming about. You know what I'm
Who are
saying?
just hot for the moment. Yeah.
Yeah,
Who
exactly.
a year ago they
In
were.
our line of work,
Yeah.
we got to take them as they come. You know?
Take them as-
Yeah. No, you're right.
But that's also why we rely on the agent and the manager to also do their job.
Yeah.
Because that can't all fall on us. It's not our
You know what?
responsibility. Yeah.
And
No,
sometimes they don't
but you have
go
to
line.
do your due diligence. You
Right.
have
But
to.
you know what? So check this out. And you know, we get it after the ink is dried, everything. So what we can do one or two things. We can either bitch about it, which falls on deaf ears, and then they start looking at you cockeyed like, oh, you can't do it, or we make it happen. Now making it happen is gonna cost this amount of money. I gotta leapfrog this production. You want to see this same production tomorrow night in Copenhagen? Okay, we can do that. This was
Here's how much it's going to cost.
Then it's like either okay or nah, we don't want to do that. But see, you can't go and just complain about it because because the agent, everybody's looking at it. Then agents is like, what? He said yes.
Yeah,
Right.
but the agent and the manager is not on site. We're the one who got to take the bullet.
Right.
Exactly.
They're not on site.
Exactly.
They're sitting in their luxury office in LA, New York,
Right.
drinking a damn
And,
cocktail.
and our job, it doesn't matter what we can make it happen.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a question of can we do it? Yes. It's just going to cost either this or that. I mean,
my favorite phrase is, we can do anything as long as it doesn't contravene the laws of space and time. If you got the money, we'll make it happen.
Oh, absolutely.
The only thing I can't make happen, if you don't care how much it costs, I can make it happen as long as it doesn't contravene the laws of physics. You know, I can't put a real honest to God 747 on a 20 by 40 stage.
Yeah, you can.
That contravenes the laws of physics. Now there's ways that you can make it look like it's a 747, and we can give you the illusion of a 747, but we can't afford to buy a 747 and bring it and put it on this 20 by 40 stage.
It's called projection.
So I'm saying, no, there's a way we can make it look like it's there, but we can't actually do that. But you're right. The communication back and forth, not only with the festival, but with the artist, and excuse me, so long as everybody knows what the expectations are.
But
Manage expectations.
But that's critical that everybody in the loop truly understand what the hell's going on over in Europe. Over in Europe, you have more restrictions in terms of even the way the drivers have to drive.
Oh, yeah.
You have the double drivers. That's a cottage industry over there. That's a cottage industry. That's how well prepared they are, you know? And then when you go from the continent and you're going up to Scandinavia, you know, you've got ferries and everything else involved, you know?
Yeah.
And one other thing I like to say, in reality, a lot of the festivals outside this country are far better to do than some of the festivals here.
They got their shit together over there. Forget about it. That's a science over their festivals. Somebody told me one time that there are 250 to 280 festivals a summer in Europe.
Yeah.
That's how many they do. All the way from
I believe that. I've done 240 of them.
Little thing in a parking lot to the ones we've seen, like Glastonbury or whatever, 9,000 stages spread over 28 acres or whatever.
Yeah. Down in the valley, and that's where all the water flows.
Machine, Huh? I said they run like well-oiled machines.
Oh, yeah, they do. Yeah. So
I'd add to what Curtis said, the most important part of it all is the advance.
Yes.
You have to make sure your advance is correct. Yes. And working with festivals, because we've all had the artist that wants to get as much as they can there of their look. It's a dance, and you have to work your way. You have to learn the choreography of the festival,
right?
So that you can get what you need on that stage and get it off and get it to the next gig.
Yeah. Somehow, and when you need it, because you only have this little window.
at
to
what the
get in and
compromise
out.
is.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you have to make sure, this is when it comes down to making sure that your crew is top notch. Because
Yep.
at the most you're gonna have 45 minutes on that changeover. So you're gonna have to take what could have, you're gonna have to get yourself into that 45-minute space that the band before you is getting off.
Yep.
And get yours in, get that show done, and get it out. And I'd say in terms of the other challenges or differences with Europe, it's like Tony said, you're either on the continent, you're going to Scandinavia, you're Sheshin, wherever you're going, you have to deal with the carnets. You have to deal with making sure that knowing
Oh,
your
yeah.
driver's times, that you get to the next gig in time and time your show and everything to make sure it flows, because there are different rules. Although it's an open border, there
Yeah.
are different rules.
Right.
And even as something as simple as your fire certificate for your goods. They may work here in
please.
America, but you have to get different ones for different regions.
For different
of
localities,
Europe,
Yeah.
You know?
I
Yeah.
think one of the
UK
things,
Localities,
one of the things though that you just mentioned, Rebekah, is really important is when you tour internationally, and particularly when you're touring international festivals, you must have a top-notch crew. I have actually had guys on my crew in the States that I said, dude, I love you. And when we get back, I'll probably hire you, but I can't take you to Europe because you're not ready.
Right.
Because you don't move fast enough, and you're not as on, in the States. And when you're doing your own shows and you have all day to put up the drum set or to plug in the board or whatever, you can be a little more deliberate. But over there, like Rebekah says, when you got this little window that you got to get in, get your stuff up, get it functioning, and then get it out, you have to have top-notch crew members.
You need pros.
And
with
sometimes you can, like I said, I have left guys behind. It's, not because they weren't trying, but they just weren't quite ready to deal with that pressure and with that level of urgency that you have to be able to move at.
And you have to be able to work at that level without losing it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because things that, like, the important thing about what we all do is the personality managing.
Yeah.
Because if we have 5 tour buses, we have 72 or more personalities. Yep. And that doesn't count the people that have 3 or 4. You know? So we have to work with all that. And it's very important when you go into these festivals, you have to remember these festival cats, they've been here sleeping under the stage for 12 days. They have 12 days to go. Yeah. You're just coming in. You can't come in and disrupt it with what you think or what your way or what this.
Right.
You have to come in. You have to work together. You have to respect them. They have to respect you. But you have to trust that they've been doing this festival. So what you need to do to get your artists on stage, this is what I need. How can you do it? Work together.
Yeah.
Because they know their festival better than you do.
And some of those festivals have a hell of a lineup for not a week but 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, they go on forever.
Yeah, like Byron Bay and Oxygen.
Yeah, Byron Bay is a big one.
I mean, you can leave
Glastonbury. Glastonbury, you have to make sure that you can get in
the mud.
Drive.
With Glastonbury, you better make sure you bring your boots.
Yeah, you have to bring your boots. You have to keep your gear dry. You have to keep your people. I mean, it's the weather and Mother Nature are a whole nother part of festivals that you need to learn to deal with.
But that's part of the European festival. If you leave one case behind during a loadout, that's gonna haunt you for the next 2 weeks of your tour.
Yep.
Just one case, and there's thousands of cases sitting around on the loading dock. So you need to have a smart crew, like Rebekah said, and sharp. You can't have the domestic version crew guy.
No,
you need a sharp one.
Yeah,
and every case count.
Yep. Yeah, you have to have your top-notch people.
Oh, absolutely.
And moving on to the next this leads us very, I think, organically into the next subject. Is everybody? Let's just go around, and this is what I call the war stories section. What was your worst show or your scariest show, or and how did you survive it? What about you, Victor?
Yes, I have one.
Don't we all? We all have one.
Yeah, well, I have several, but I had to figure out which one I want to do. But I'm gonna do this one.
Yeah.
We all have heard, well, Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis, Tennessee.
Mr. Woody.
Mr. Woody. Mr. Woody.
You showing your age, Victor.
Hold up. So, yeah, I know, right? I was doing Rick James, production manager for Rick James. I'm starting way back because this was very impactful. So Rick James had a song, Mary Jane, that he sang, and we bring 2 6-foot joints out that people come and walk out. All right. But what he does at that song, he does a chant, and he tells everybody, usually what he did, he said, everybody raise your left hand and pretend like it's Ronald Reagan. All right. And then take your right hand and smack the shit out of him. All right. And everybody did it. We're in Memphis, Tennessee now. Okay. Now, wait a minute. Mr. Woody, for those that don't know Mr. Woody, you know what? And I've been there for years, so he knows me. He liked me.
Yeah, no, I was cool, but yeah.
Didn't matter. Rick James said, all right, everybody raise your left hand up in the air and act like it's that MF Elvis Presley. And take your right hand and smack. And it was like when he did, I'm like, no. Listen. You know, Elvis Presley is God in Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah,
right?
You're in Tennessee. For God, man, get out of here.
But that's how rebellious Rick was, okay?
Yeah.
So at the end of the night, nobody did anything. You couldn't touch anything. And it was like a New York, the Crew One type of union approach. Don't nobody Mr. Woody, if you was to look for the definition of redneck, Mr. Woody was like from here there was just a big neck, and it was, I mean, lovely person, but he's back in, he didn't let nothing. It wasn't the fact that I had a relationship with him, and I was like that little young black kid from South Central with a Jerry curl. Say, okay, Mr. Woody, what we need to do? Okay, get him a fit the Jack Daniels or whatever. All right, then he let us load out. Because it's like, that was like, whoa, that was.
Otherwise, your shit would still be sitting there.
Oh, absolutely.
No, it would have sat there. I'd have been gone, okay? Because something else would have started popping off at that point, okay?
Because Mr. Woody was a forklift driver, too, so he wasn't doing nothing.
You're right. Oh, he didn't come off that forklift. That was the forklift.
Yeah.
What about you, Tony?
The most recent thing was twice we went to do festival in Wanapens, France, down on the Mediterranean, and 2 years straight we got wiped out by a storm that came in across the Mediterranean and just blew everything off the damn stage. Just blew everything out. I mean, PA stacks were flapping in the air like this. That's how bad it was. 2 years straight. I looked at the promoter. I said, "Don't book this damn show no more, man. It's
you don't want to come back.
No, it's just not going to happen. We're going to get we're going to get crushed again. Yeah. So that was one horror story. The other one is years ago at the in Rotterdam at the Ahoy.
Wow.
We did a pre-rig one night, and we came in the next day, and for whatever reason the fiberglass straps that they used to hang the cabinets were defective. They weren't put together the right way. You know, you what you do is you glue them, then you stitch them twice, and that way they'll support thousands of pounds. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we came back the next morning, and the whole right side, all the stacks were on the floor.
Oh wow!
So you had rigged it the night before, and then they fell during the night.
Yeah, because they fell because the straps were not manufactured correctly.
Yeah,
they weren't glued; they just stitched them.
Yeah,
and in reality, you had to glue them and then stitch them,
right.
and that gave them their strength.
So what'd you do? Just rehang it? I mean, did you have damage?
No, hell yeah.
So much for the pre-rig. So much for the pre-rig.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that didn't do you a whole lot of good. What about
Yeah.
you, Curtis?
You know, Lil Wayne and Drake, I think like 2015. We was finishing up the tour. We just played Dallas Amphitheater. You know, it's a small loading dock. We all been there before.
Yeah.
And we was doing our overnight show from Dallas to Houston.
Yes.
We left Dallas about 1 o'clock in the morning, and the trucks took off first. The bus left maybe a half an hour, 40 minutes behind. You know, I lay down in bed about 1:30 on the bus, 2 o'clock, and then all of a sudden the bus driver awakened me. He said, "Curtis, one of your trucks flipped over down the highway in front of us." I'm like, "Oh, shit."
Oh, man.
So I'm walking, you know, I get off the bus, walking down a dark lane, Interstate 10, I believe, because it was in between
Dallas and Houston.
Dallas and Houston. And all the traffic was shut down, all 4 lanes. One of my drivers flipped the truck, and all the lighting gear came out the top of the trailer across the highway. And it shut traffic down probably like 5 hours.
Yikes.
So what I did, you know, I kind of assessed the problem, but I knew all the tour buses was behind me, which was good. So I called the management first of all. I called management and booking and said, "Hey, we're probably gonna be having a show tomorrow because I got a truck of lighting gear across the highway." You know, I mean, you talking lighting cases and shit.
Everything.
I mean, you know, so I called back to all the bus drivers and said, "Hey, wake the crew guys up. We need to clear this highway in order for the traffic." You know, they're about a mile back. You know, about a mile back in order to clear the highway. So you know, all the crew guys got up and you know, we started moving stuff at 4 o'clock in the morning, shoveling shit around.
Wow.
And we still got another hour to make it for 8 o'clock load in. You know, and it's 4 o'clock in the morning. We got gear across the whole interstate that's shut down. Highway patrols everywhere. News reporter, you know, Lil Wayne truck flip over, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? We ended up getting everything back in another truck about 9 o'clock that morning. We made the load in about 10:30. And
sorry.
You know, we made the load in. We held doors maybe 30 minutes, put up a BC rig for the lighting. The audience never had a clue.
Yep.
You know, we still had our set. The show, you know, the show goes on, which was all good, you know. And
that's a great story. So you flipped a truck, lost your rig or most of your lighting rig.
We lost the whole. We lost.
Picked it all up, put it in another truck, and did the show.
And we did the show, and we made the show on time.
There you go.
And it was the last show, you know.
Yeah.
That was probably one of my longest days, toughest days, you know.
That's a classic story.
But we pulled it off, you know.
Yeah, because like we keep saying, that's our job is to make it happen.
Correct.
That's a classic story.
And that's not the
Ronnie?
That's not Bill. That's not the sun coming up in the morning.
No, I know you're going to leave that story.
Oh boy, that was a piece of work.
That's a funny story. That is a funny ass story.
It's all true.
What about you, Ronnie?
So I have 2 quick ones. Well, the first one is I was production manager on. The second one I was just on the tour. But the first one, so when President Obama was ending his second term, the presidents, they all do these presidential dinners. And he was doing a presidential dinner, and Neo was called, and they asked him to perform for the presidential dinner. And he was hosting. So, you know, these presidential dinners are when they host another foreign leader. So he was hosting President Xi from China. And, you know, you had all Facebook leader, Mark Zuckerberg, all the CEOs, because they all wanted to do business with China. So they were all in the building. Right. And so when we arrived that morning, we had all advanced everything. And I was advancing. It's not a production person. You're advancing with a staff member from the president's staff.
The White House, yeah.
The White House. So I advance everything. This is what we need. This is the gear. This is the number of people, whatever. So when we walk in on the morning of the gig, all the gear is in the room. And I said, okay, great. So where's the crew? So they say, crew, you guys are the crew. I said, no, we need a crew to like put up all the sound and all the, like the stage. They said, no, we don't do that here. We don't. I said, well, no one told us this. So I mean, basically, because it was President Obama, we all rolled up our sleeves and we made it happen. And we became the crew.
Yeah,
But
well, that's another one of those, you got to make it happen. I mean, and I think we've all been in the back of the truck. We've all hauled that cable, bolted those trusses together, and stacked that PA, because there was either not enough guys, or in some cases, no guys. I think we've all had that. Who was it that used to put you out the back door at whatever o'clock, and you had to finish? There's some venue
up in Providence.
Providence was one.
Yeah, up there.
I'm thinking this was a warm weather place, but one of those places where, well, actually a lot of places where the crew was only paid until whatever, 2 o'clock, and that's as much as the promoter paid for. And if you still got stuff to load after 2 o'clock, I'm sorry for you. So they shove you out the door and close the door.
Yep.
And there you and your 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, 8 or 10 guys, whatever you got, and you're finishing loading that truck by yourself. There's usually bad weather involved.
Right.
It's either cold, raining, or snowing, or all three. All right. So we only have a couple of 3 minutes left here.
We need Rebekah's.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Rebekah. What's your horror story?
It was a Nigerian one, Rebekah.
give you a Nigeria one. Okay, a Nigeria one at your request. There's a couple.
We all got one of those.
Oh yeah, I got a Nigeria story.
I think one of the ones that was terrifying for many reasons, but then ended up being great was, and I think I told this on the other webinar, we went to a gig where I'm showing up for Luton for a Naughty by Nature show in Nigeria, and we're in a big open field, maybe the polo grounds or something, and everything's going along, and I say, well, where are the barricades? Because this is a situation where you need barricades.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
So I'm
this
asking,
is Nigeria.
Like, where are the barricades? No worries, they'll be here. And it's already 6 hours. Where are the barricades? Sound check's done. I'm waiting for the barricades. And they make a call. They're like, okay, we're going to bring them now. It's way early than we ever bring them. Gentlemen, they brought out 3 ropes. Went all the way around the entire stage in levels, 3 ropes. And then they brought the soldiers with their M16s inside of these ropes.
That's the barricade.
They were the barricade.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, okay, this is ugly, but what happens when they push? They won't push. I'm like, no, what happens if there's a natural disaster and they have to come this way? They won't come this way. And literally, the people at the front were like this, not wanting to go forward because the men were standing there with their weapons and they were the living barricade. And if somebody came past the rope, they got a lick, or there was 2 people that came past the rope. One because he couldn't help it and he fell through, and they just picked him up and bodily moved him. And the other one that actually tried to come through just got a knock on the head, and then he got moved. So that was terrifying, because the whole time I did not want gunfire to kill any of the audience. And this is a God's honest truth. The other time was we did a show in Brazil. This is with Marcus. We're in tour in Brazil, and we do a show that's like out on some rocks, like we're all the way. I think it's Brazil with Guadalupe, but we're out on the rocks, and I don't know how the speaker, everything's out there, but you're out in the water on the rocks. I sent a picture of this in so you could just like see what this was. And sure enough, the tide started coming up. And they're telling me everything's secure, and sure enough, the tide starts coming up. And next thing you know, the subs are wet. And I'm like, you have like 6 inches and we're going to flood the stage. What are you? And they're like, it'll ride out. And sure enough, everything got wet. We got everything up on stuff, dry it off. They had it science. They had it down to a science. But things got wet, and that was also scary gig because we couldn't cancel. There was not a really good reason for me to cancel without causing secondary drama, and sometimes you guys know what that secondary drama is.
Yep.
And we got through, and nobody.
And you couldn't stop the ocean from coming in.
For me, with Marcus, if he can play and touch the mic and not blow up, then we're good.
Then you're good.
But no, and the absolute worst thing that ever happened to me in terms of all of this is we did a gig in Monaco. This is my worst gig. We did a gig in Monaco, amazing gig. We driving to the next gig, which is in the Netherlands, which goes back to promoters and how they throw the dart to where your next city's going to be.
Yeah.
So this is 1,000-kilometer drive. It's a long drive.
That's right.
And
all the way up.
It's all the way up. And we got a double driver. And, I could feel when we switched drivers because our driver, Andre, was smooth. And you guys have probably been driven by Andre. And so then I went back to sleep. I got up to go check on the driver, went back to sleep. And the next thing I knew, our bus flipped over and we were spinning down the highway in Switzerland.
I remember that.
I remember that too.
Yeah. We slid a football field down the highway. And fortunately, the driver unfortunately died because he didn't have his seatbelt on, and he got thrown to the door. All the musicians, all my crew, we were all safe, but that was hands down the most terrifying thing I've been through on the road.
I can't think of anything that would be worse.
That was in the winter, and you guys were going through Switzerland too, right?
Right.
We were going through Switzerland, but it was no road condition. It's a beautiful day, and if you Google the pictures of the bus accident, you see like the sun shining in a rainbow, like blessings were flowing down on us.
Wow.
Because we should have been dead. The bus.
You should have all died.
But the good thing, we should have all been seriously hurt, and some of us were, but we're not dead. We're alive.
Yeah.
I had a ruptured spleen. Another guy broke ribs. Stuff like that. But there was the good thing that came out of it is once our bus was released, Coach Services took our bus and used it as an example and rebuilt all of their buses from what failed on our bus. So Coach Services buses are now amongst the safest in Europe because of the fact that they reinforced and really made sure, and they took all those old buses off and reinforced them all and put them back on the road.
Yeah.
By what didn't work during our crash.
Wow. Yeah. That would be the absolute worst. Well, listen, we've run out of time. I didn't get to the 5th question. We had actually started to address this while we were waiting to start. So real quickly, real fast, one sentence. When do you think we get back to work? Tony.
Well, I know we have stuff lined up in the 3rd and 4th quarter right now as I speak. I know we definitely also have, because these guys that I'm working with now, Earth, Wind & Fire, they're big in the corporate world. And these guys definitely had a lot of corporate gigs that they had to cancel last year that are right back on them this year.
Mm-hmm. So you think 3rd quarter, you think you're going back to work in 3rd quarter?
I think 3rd quarter is going to gradually start, and 4th quarter is going to go nuts. Okay. Some of the coach and trucking companies I've been talking to, they're practically maxed out already.
What about you, Victor? What's your prediction?
I think the 4th quarter. I actually think the 4th quarter. I think the 3rd quarter, people are going to touch the waters, which we kind of touch bases on that.
Yeah.
to going live. I think they're gonna kind of, you know,
dip their toe
in there and see it if it's warm enough or what, because no one knows. If don't liabilities, there's a lot of variables involved in coming down. So with that being said, I'm thinking third quarter, fourth quarter, and as Ronnie said, real touring 2022.
Okay. What about you, Curtis? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm thinking fourth quarter. I mean, because third quarter is kind of coming towards the end of amphitheaters, so you won't be able to get outdoor shows. So more fourth quarters and more international, Australia, New Zealand, South America, Europe stuff.
Okay. What about you, Ronnie?
Yeah, I think fourth quarter, but I think touring in 2022. I don't think
we touched on that earlier. We may be doing shows in the fourth quarter, but we won't be touring, like go out for 3 or 4 weeks, show after show. I agree. What about you, Rebekah?
I feel the same. I think one-offs, there might be 1 or 2 third quarter, but I think the fourth quarter we'll start seeing one-offs, and I don't think we'll be touring until
2022.
Second quarter of 2022.
Okay. Real serious hardcore
Internationally,
touring.
we'll be able to do one-offs, and if they're able to get some of these pod festivals on, all that can happen. But I don't think it, and I don't ever think it's going to be what it used to be.
Well, there'll be a new normal. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we'll ever see what we saw the last 40 years, but it'll be something. All right, we're out of time. I want to thank all of our panelists. I hope this has been interesting and informative for those of you watching. And once again, I want to thank Theater Art Life for putting this together. And good luck, and see you all down the road someplace. And thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.